Hello everybody, welcome back to another video by Jay Bowman. Today I'm looking again at one of my favourite synthesizers, which is the Mask1 bit mask synthesizer by Kodamo. For a while I'd had on my desk the Keystage with the Kodamo Essence FM and various other FM synthesizers, and it had been like that for a few weeks, and I just thought last night, you know what, I've had enough of FM, let's go back to the bit mask sound and back to the Mask1, see what we can get out of it, see what I've been working on before I put it away for a bit. And so that's what this video is going to be about. I might look at some patches that I've made recently. I might also try and come up with some patches. I've heard a couple of things recently where I thought, okay, I wonder if the Mask1 can do that sound. You might be able to hear from my voice, I'm just recovering from a bit of an illness, so apologies for the even worse vocal quality than usual, but hopefully you'll be able to stick with me and bear it out. So let's turn on the Mask1. As I say, I've not had it on for a few weeks, so let's see. So periodically I just go through and I wipe all of the patches off the Mask1. It seems to be something I just do from time to time. I think I get more inspiration from seeing a blank batch of 600 user patches for me to make new sounds than I do having pre-installed sounds. It's just the way I work. So let's have a look at some of the sounds I made after I wiped the bank. So this is Voice 0 J Child. Interesting. I've completely forgotten that I've made these sounds. So I can tell that there is some key to envelope rate scaling going on there. So you can hear that some of these looping envelopes, they are slower when I play lower down the keyboard. And then as I play higher up the keyboard, the envelopes go faster. So that's a nice technique on the Mask1. I mean, other keyboards have it as well, but that's a nice technique on the Mask1 for kind of just introducing more variety into the sounds, so it's not the same where you play it, depending on where you play it on the keyboard. There is an issue I've raised with Kodamo actually, that the way the rate parameter works, and I've just found it in the general menu there. So it's on a setting of 7. So if I had it on 0, yeah, the envelope is the same rate wherever I play on the keyboard. If I set it to 15, that's the most extreme example. And you can get it so it will go into audio rates at one end of the keyboard and barely discernible rates at the lower end of the keyboard, which is great. One of the things I've raised with Kodamo though is that it's not, at the moment, it doesn't seem to be a smooth gradation between the keys. I mean, when I was just messing around there earlier, you couldn't notice, but there are some kind of almost step-like jumps. It seems like you have an octave is almost playing the same speed, and then it jumps suddenly as you go up to the other octave, rather than being a steady increase from key to key. There, you heard it there when I went from the A to the B. I'm not sure why it's done that way. I've I have raised it with Kodamo. I think it would be good if they could make it a smooth transition, so it's more properly key tracked. But yeah, it's quite a nice sound actually. And of course, it is using my favorite bit mask shape. So for those whose this video is the first encounter you have with the Mask1, welcome. So the way that the Mask1 works is you have different wave shapes essentially, which are bit masks. You know, a sine wave is chopped up into different bits, and that produces the wave shape that makes the sound. And then you put that through a nice filter. You've got LFOs, you've got looping amplitude envelopes, and you've got a noise source as well, and some lovely effects, pitch envelope. So that's basically the Mask1 in a nutshell. But on the front panel here, they've listed some of the masks, some of the most significant masks. So Mask 7 obviously is the sawtooth wave, 8 is the square wave. These are approximates, they're not exact. But there, 15 is half sine. Interestingly, it's because I've been using the Essence FM recently, it's called half sine on the Mask1. There's a similar shape on the Essence FM which is called something different. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but I did notice that half sine on the Mask1 is not the same as half sine on the Essence FM. Anyway, so we've got two independent oscillators, bit mask oscillators, both of which are sounding, both of which are using that same bit mask, which is producing that half sine shape. Now, if I just turn off one of the oscillators so you can just hear, and you can see on the oscilloscope actually pretty clearly. So that's what the half sine is about. Actually, it seems like it's an inverted half sine. It's the opposite way around to how it appears on the front panel. I'm pointing at this, but actually you can't see it. I've just realised because it's just off the camera. But anyway, on the front panel, it's shown as a camel hump, whereas here it looks more like sea waves, you know. So that's the sound of the half sine, which I really like. And when you have two slightly detuned against each other, it gives that really nice effect. Yeah, so the two oscillators, I think they're doing the same thing, but they're just slightly detuned. Now, there are some looping envelopes going on, as we can tell from what I just looked at in the first part of the video, what is actually looping. So we have, I think it's the amplitude envelope. No, it must be the filter envelope then, yeah. Okay, so that's that sound. That's obviously the first sound I made once I wiped the Mask1 and started all over again. So this one's called the same, so this is the next one up. It's obviously a development of that sound. Not sure what I changed there. So obviously needed to make some drums, so I made a kick sound there. Then a snare. And a bass sound. Strings, okay. Nice, so I've obviously pushed that sound a bit further. Right, so if I was going to guess, I'd say we've got a sawtooth wave, but with a bandpass filter. Let's see. Yeah. So they're both quite quiet, both playing sawtooth wave, which is Mask 7, as I went through earlier. Now this one you can see on the panel here. Number 7, sawtooth. There's a bit of noise. This is probably notch filter rather than a bandpass, sorry. Let's have a look. Yeah. Nice. Okay. 7. Another kick. Nice beefy kick there. Another snare. I'm just flicking through these. I think some of these I did use in a track. I made a kind of reggae-ish track that I uploaded to YouTube, which I might put a link to if I can remember, but I think these sounds went into that. Okay, so this doesn't start with J. So OB brass, so I obviously was looking to make brass sound, so I must have copied, because as well as these user presets, if you scroll right, scroll clockwise, you've got these factory presets. So I obviously got the factory preset OB brass, and where was I? Yeah. Manipulated that one. More kicks, more snares. That's the first patch which has been a split or a layer, so all the patches beforehand were singles, so then I put a kick and a snare together as a split patch. So you can play both together. Pad. A shaker. Another pad. Yes, quite an intriguing sound. If you're new to the Mask1, as I say, we're getting into some of the character of what this synth is about, and I think obviously it's got all these looping envelopes. It's got looping amplitude envelopes for each oscillator, the noise and the filter, but it's also in each bit mask oscillator got a looping delta envelope for the bit mask position. So I suspect that's what's happening here. Yeah, so on oscillator 1, just to try and explain what's happening, we're starting with bit mask 63, which you can probably just about see there on the front panel is a kind of sine with a period of silence, so a discontinuous sine. And then, so how to explain that? Okay, so bit mask 63, that's where it's starting. Okay, bit mask 63 is the base patch, base bit mask. Then the delta envelope is starting 18 bit mask position down. So that is 45, sorry. Took me a minute there, 45. So rather than starting on 63, it's actually starting 18 below that, so 45. And then at a speed of 5, it is going up from 45 to 63 through the bit mask series. And it's looping, so it's doing that and then it's going back round again. Whereas the other oscillator is not looping, so. Interesting sound. So you're getting a lot of different tonalities there, and it's not using frequency modulation. It's using subtractive synthesis because there is a filter, a really good digital filter there. It's kind of like wave sequencing, because it's not like a wave table, because each bit mask is discontinuous, so you can hear the distinct timbres. There's no smooth transition, and for whatever reason there's no way, as things currently stand, to smoothly transition automatically between two different timbres, even though you've got two oscillators with independent amplitude envelopes. I've done a video going into that. And two LFOs as well. But it gives it a very distinctive sound. So that's that sound, J loop, another kick, another snare. Nice one. J Mask. again, you hear that, that's the characteristic sound of modulating through the bit mask position. Because the bit masks, they go in a series, and if you look at this, people have done a visual representation of what each bit mask looks like, and there's a series of, say, 16 shapes which just are replicated through to produce the 512 different shapes that you can get out of in the series. I should say they're not straightforwardly replicated, but if you look at the patterns long enough, you can discern the kind of common techniques that are being used to produce these sounds. But anyway, that's looking at them visually, but if you just listen to it, you can hear this kind of transition. It's like steps. It's a very, as I say, very distinctive sound. Okay, so that's J Mask. J ARP. Nice. J Mask ARP. Okay, not sure what I had in mind for that one. J Evil, okay. Okay. Okay, I developed that more obviously. So again, you hear that distinctive characteristic of the Mask1, those steps between the masks. Obviously it's got the LFO, it's doing some, doing the filter, which is the kind of quick modulation that you hear, but it's also stepping through the mask position, and it's looping in a bi-directional movement. So it's starting, the base mask is 127, it's starting 10 below that, so 117, then it's going up at a rate of 4 until it reaches 127, then it's going back down, 10 down, then it's coming back up. So and you just hear those different tonalities of the mask being picked out at different times by the LFO. So that's what the Mask1 is all about, really. And it looks like I've got the two oscillators set up doing something pretty similar. Let's see, they're both using the same mask. They're both, they're both looping in the same way, so I expect they're just slightly detuned against each other. yeah, to give it that kind of chorusing effect. Okay, I developed it further. It's 33 J Evil. So here I changed from starting at mask 127 to mask 31, which is the sine wave. So it's still doing the same movement, going 10 down and then coming back up. So it's going down into the 20s. Now the 20s, I think you can just see number 28 on the front panel is a kind of cross between a square and a sine wave. That's what the 20s, the bit masks in the 20s are, and that's a very distinctive sound as well. And you can hear that there's more fundamental tone to those bit masks than there is to the bit masks which are in the 100 and teens, which I used in the previous version, 32, 33, 34. Is an init patch. Okay, so that was the first part of the video, just looking through the few patches that I've made so far since I wiped the Mask1. In the second part of the video, let's take a look at making a patch from scratch on the Mask1. There's a couple of things I want to try out, so that's what I'm going to do. So stay tuned if you want to see that, and that'll be the next part of the video coming up now. Okay, so we have an init patch here on the Mask1. Now, by default, we have a single oscillator playing bit mask 7, which is a sawtooth, as we've seen from the front panel, and as you can see from the oscilloscope there. It's a kind of slightly digital sounding sawtooth, but a sawtooth nonetheless. And the sound I want is a kind of pad filtered. I'm not sure if it's a high pass filter or a band pass filter I want yet, but that's the sound I want. So I'm going to stick with the sawtooth wave for now, and let's give it a kind of a stringy kind of, or paddy kind of envelope with I find the 10s work pretty well. Okay, so let's apply some filtering. I'm going to go into high pass filter because by default it's in low pass, but I've gone to high pass mode. Let's lower the cutoff so we can actually hear it. Let's add some vibrato. Okay, let's add some key tracking to the filter. Has quite a drastic effect. If you can hear it, but also I just noticed if you look on the oscilloscope and the FFT there. Now what this sound is begging for is reverb and delay, so I'm just going to put some of that on to start with, just because I know I'm going to want it. So. So I've just introduced a second oscillator and copied over the envelope settings from oscillator 1 to oscillator 2. And I'm going to detune them against each other, so probably just 2 for now. Now there's a kind of rhythmic quality to the sound, which I'm not sure if it's the delay or the vibrato, which I've introduced using LFO1, so I'm just going to turn off the vibrato. I think it's the delay. So if I switch from, so delay 1 is the default FX effect for FX bus 2. Now if I want to, which is great because it's got reverb as well as delay, but if I just want reverb, let's see if that makes a difference. Let's try it. Let's try it on. I think the delay is giving it too much of a rhythmic character, so I'm just going to stick it with reverb, no delay. Okay, should we have some noise? So if I want to copy the envelope shape, I would just do that. Let's see. Now you can change the character of the noise, or change the frequency, I should say. Now that's a nice effect, and it would be great if there were an envelope for changing the noise frequency. So it's quite subtle because the noise is very quiet. But if I make the noise louder, just so you can hear what I'm talking about, let's do that again. So yeah, I would love it if each time I played a note, we could get that kind of fading out. Or change in frequency of the noise, I should say. But there isn't an envelope for that so far. As I say, it would be great if there was a delta envelope for noise frequency to match the delta envelopes that you've got for bit mask in each of the oscillators. Of course, what you can do is use an LFO to modulate the noise frequency. I'm just going to do this to show you how that sounds. I don't think it's going to work because it's so I'm going to use a down ramp shape and maximum amount, speed of 1. I probably need to start on the lowest frequency. And it doesn't work because, you know, the thing about these LFOs is they're always free running. You can't set them to key trigger. So I don't know where in the cycle, when I press the key, I don't know where in the cycle for the noise frequency I am. If I change the speed, it's not going to work. So yeah. So obviously I don't have, as I just explained, I don't have an envelope for noise frequency. I do have an envelope on the filter cutoff, obviously, which I could use to have a similar kind of effect, but that would affect the oscillators as well as the noise. So do I want to do that? Let's see, what's the way to do that, to try it out. What I'll do is I'm going to save this patch just now. Let's call it high pad, which is kind of what I'm going for. So now I can mess with it without losing everything I've done. I'm going to put the cutoff to I'm going to go to 70. No, what I want to do actually, I'll use the envelope to go up and then come back down. Yeah. That's actually okay now, that's kind of quite a standard sound really. The sound I was hearing and was chasing there was trying to just do that to the noise and not to the oscillators, but actually it's, you know, it sounds okay doing it to everything. But then if you're going to do that, why not go all the way? And why not try some resonance to make the effect more pronounced? So we are getting into a very different sound from what I had in mind now. Yeah, so I am going to go back to the saved sound. So I've got more options I can use to do more sound design. I could add FX1, chorus for example. Distortion I wouldn't use for this. Bit mask. It is quite interesting actually. Did I say bit mask? I meant to say bit crusher. This is the effect I'm using, bit crusher effect. Ring modulation. What about adding some random element to the filter frequency? That might be interesting. So let's do that. Let's just go to the wave, add random. So I've got it going to frequency now instead, and that's quite interesting. So random modulation to the frequency of both oscillators. We can put it to the frequency of just one of the oscillators. I think it sounds better if it's going to both of them. I can put a very subtle pitch envelope on there, very subtle and slow. So it's got very useful compare buttons now. If I hear the pad as I've made it now, it's got a bit of life to it compared to the saved version. That's from that additional pitch modulation. I don't think it needs an effect from effect slot 1, so I think I've done everything I want to do for that pad, and I think that sounds pretty nice. Of course, when I'm playing down low there, the filter is cutting out a lot of that low. And I just changed that with the tracking. I put it down to 0. And that cutoff frequency is really exaggerated on the high pass filter. So I think I like it where I had it before 75 for general playing, but so now I would generally look at the mod options. So what do we do with velocity, mod wheel, etc. So at the moment, velocity is not having any effect. If I turn it up to maximum, so if I route it to the filter, at the moment, the harder I play, the softer it is, because I'm using high pass rather than low pass filter. Interestingly, there's no way to make that inverse. So yeah, the filter option works for low pass filter and probably band pass and notch, but not for high pass really. So I'm not going to use that. Same with filter envelope generator. Volume would be the traditional one. But I am not, I've never have been a big touch sensitivity kind of guy, velocity sensitivity. So I wouldn't generally do that. Mask, now that's an interesting option. So then the harder I play the key, now that's another interesting thing. The Mask series, I should have mentioned before, they change octave. Generally, the higher up the bit mask series you go, the lower the octave, which means that as I'm using velocity to change the bit mask position, if I play really hard, I'm using the low bit mask numbers, which are very high in pitch. Whereas if I play normally, I'm using the higher bit masks, which are lower in pitch. So again, for this patch, I'm not going to route velocity to anything, I don't think. Well, actually, there's this option attack, which I think changes. If you play hard, if you play fast, I should say, then you have more of a piano type of attack. If you play softly, that might actually be useful. That's probably what I would go for. Okay, unfortunately, I see I'm running out of time on this video, and I probably spent long enough on this one patch. I think it's quite a nice sound, but you can see I can get lost for hours in this thing, just making new patches. So thanks very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please give me a like and a subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next video. Goodbye.